I still remember the exact moment I knew everything had changed. It wasn't a fight, a harsh word, or even a cold shoulder. It was the sound of the door closing behind her, again, and the realization that she wasn't coming back. This time she wouldn't. Her name was Priya, and we had shared 6 years of marriage, a home, dreams, and secrets. Or so I thought. I had returned from work that Thursday evening, exhausted from a meeting that had dragged on for hours, only to find a note on the kitchen counter. I need time. Don't look for me. Priya. The words were short, almost casual, but they carried a weight that knocked the air out of me. I read the note 3 times, each time expecting some hidden meaning, some explanation that would make sense. But there was none. The first few days after she left were a blur. I went through the motions, making coffee, feeding the dog, staring at her side of the bed that now seemed impossibly empty. I called her incessantly, my voice cracking as I begged her to tell me why, but my calls went unanswered. Her silence was a living, breathing entity in the apartment, suffocating me. Then came the messages. I had resisted checking her phone before, respecting what I thought was our mutual trust. But grief is an opportunist, and curiosity is a cruel companion. When I finally unlocked her phone, an act I would later regret, the truth hit me harder than anything I could have imagined. Photos, texts, and even short videos of her meeting someone else. Not just anyone else, her ex-boyfriend, Raj. He was broke, unemployed, living in a tiny apartment he couldn't even afford, yet she was smiling in ways I had only ever seen from me. There was laughter, intimacy, and a familiarity that tore me in two. 4 months had passed since she left me, and in those months she had returned to him, to the man she once loved before me. I remember sitting on the cold wooden floor of our living room, the phone slipping from my numb fingers, as if letting go of it could somehow erase what I had seen. My world didn't just tilt. It shattered. I wanted to scream, cry, throw things, make her regret it, but instead I felt empty, hollow. The next day I decided to confront her, not with anger but with clarity. I drove to Raj's place. I knew her patterns, knew her spots. And sure enough, there she was, sitting on his worn-out couch, laughing at something he had said. The apartment smelled of old takeout and incense. It was a small, shabby space, but her presence made it feel alive, vibrant, the way it had once made our home feel. Only this time I wasn't part of that life anymore. I knocked on the door. She turned and our eyes met. I saw a flash of recognition, maybe guilt, but it was fleeting. "Anirudh," she said softly. I didn't answer. I walked in, the air thick between us. Raj was at the stove, pretending not to notice. Priya stood up, hesitated. "Why?" was all I managed to say. My voice was barely audible, but it carried a weight that made the room pause. "Why what?" she asked, her tone almost defensive, but I could sense an undercurrent of uncertainty. "Why me? Why us? Why everything we built?" Her eyes flickered, and I saw something in them that I hadn't expected, fear. Not of me, but of the truth that she could no longer avoid. I don't know," she whispered. I made a mistake leaving you. Raj, he's not good for me anymore." Her words hit me in waves, confusing and bitter. She had left me for him, and now she was admitting he wasn't right. The absurdity of it made my chest tighten. "You left me for him," I said, my voice steady, unervingly calm. "For months. 4 months of lies, pretending, abandoning everything we had, for him. And now what? You think telling me he's not good enough erases that?" Tears welled up in her eyes. This was the first real display of emotion I had seen from her since she left. But it wasn't enough to heal me. Not yet. Anirudh, she began, but I stopped her. "No, don't," I said, and the quiet that followed was heavier than any argument we'd ever had. I looked at her then, really looked. The woman I had loved with everything inside me was still there, but her choices had carved a canyon between us that might never be bridged. Raj stepped forward, trying to mediate. "Anirudh, man, it's complicated." "It's not complicated," I interrupted, my tone icy now. It's painfully simple. You left me. You chose someone else over everything we had. That's betrayal, Raj. That's what it is. I turned to Priya again. And you know what? I don't even want to hear your excuses. I don't need to. Your actions spoke louder than any words ever could. She flinched at my calmness like she had expected rage, maybe tears, maybe begging. But instead I smiled. A small, quiet smile that felt like it came from some deep, exhausted place. Priya's face changed instantly. Confusion, fear, guilt. It was all there. She stepped closer, reaching for my hand, but I recoiled. No, I said. Don't touch me. You've had your chance. The silence stretched. I could feel her trembling. Her tears started falling freely now, unashamed and raw. Anirudh, please. But I didn't respond. I simply stood there, letting the weight of the moment settle over all of us. My heart ached, yes, but it was no longer broken. It was tempered with something stronger, clarity. I had loved her, trusted her, believed in a life with her, and she had chosen otherwise. Her sobs echoed in the small apartment. Raj looked helpless, but there was nothing he could do. Nothing any of us could do. The choice had already been made, and it wasn't mine to change. I walked out then, each step heavy but purposeful. As I reached my car, I felt a strange sense of liberation. The storm inside me had calmed. I wasn't smiling because I was happy. I was smiling because I had survived the worst kind of heartbreak and had come out on the other side. Priya's tears followed me as I drove away, and though a part of me still loved her, I knew I had to let go. The woman I had married, the life we had imagined, was gone. And in its place was a man who could finally see the truth without being blinded by love. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the city lights bleeding through the curtains. Memories of us flickered in my mind, bittersweet and haunting. I let myself remember the laughter, the small joys, the dreams we had woven together. But I didn't let myself dwell on the betrayal. Instead, I whispered to the empty room, I survived. And I will survive. Days turned into weeks. Friends reached out, sensing the change in me. And slowly I began to reclaim pieces of my life. I started running again, taking long walks in the park, even laughing at jokes that had once seemed dull. The pain didn't vanish, of course, but it became a companion rather than a cage. Months later, I ran into Priya at a mutual friend's wedding. She looked different, weary, but I could see the familiar glint in her eyes. She approached me hesitantly, her lips trembling. Anirudh. I smiled, the same quiet, knowing smile. Priya. She swallowed hard. Sorry. For everything. I nodded calmly. I know. And that was it. No apologies could undo the past. No tears could erase the choices she had made. I left her there, standing amidst the celebration. And for the first time in months, I felt at peace. Because peace isn't about winning or losing. It's about understanding. Understanding that love can be cruel, that people make mistakes, that betrayal can cut deep. But it cannot define you unless you let it. And as I stepped onto the dance floor, watching friends laugh, watching life move forward, I realized that I had found something even more powerful than love. I had found myself. Her tears and my smile said everything. I had survived. Had loved, and I had finally let go.